Okay, so you guys wanted us to really dig into this "she wasn't alone in the house" story. And right off the bat, can we just acknowledge that title gets you every time?
Yeah, no, it's effective.
I mean, even for me, and I'm telling you, I practically live for creepy stories.
Yep.
This one, it kind of burrowed under my skin.
It's well crafted for sure.
So anyone who hasn't read it yet, we're talking about a story that, well, pays on some pretty universal anxieties. I mean, who hasn't been home alone? In an old house especially, and felt that little shiver down your spine, every creak of the floorboard.
Oh, absolutely. It's like
Right.
it taps into something primal, right? That
Uh-huh.
fear of the dark, the unknown, being vulnerable. And the way this story is written, it's almost worse because it doesn't just throw some monster at you.
Yeah,
It's all about what you don't see. You know?
exactly. Your own imagination is way scarier than anything the writer could invent.
100%. And that build up, all those little details, the way it just lets the tension ratchet up. That's what gets you.
And speaking of things that'll keep you up at night, can we talk about the whole 3:33 a.m. thing? Because even if you're the most skeptical person, there's just something about that time.
It's like it's baked into horror at this point, isn't
It's
it?
almost unavoidable.
Right. Every time you see it, even if you're like, oh, here we go again, it still gets you.
So is there actually something about that specific time, historically speaking? Or is it all just, spooky stories feeding off each other?
So there's a whole bunch of theories, right? Like if you go way back, some folks link it to, well, Christian stuff. 3 a.m. being the opposite of when Christ died. So like a demonic inversion, which who knows, but it adds to the
The creep factor.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, like it's this time when the barrier between worlds is thinnest, all that jazz. Whether you buy it or not, it's definitely embedded in the culture.
So the writer's kind of using that pre-existing fear, that association people already have, as a shortcut to make the story scarier.
100%. Like, why reinvent the wheel when you can tap into something that's already so potent, you know? But it's not even just the time. It's what happens at 3:33 a.m. in this story that'll really mess you up. The whole doppelganger thing. I mean, talk about freaky. Seeing yourself, but wrong.
Dude, Nightmare City, don't even get me started.
It's like next level unsettling.
Seriously. Is there something about doppelgangers psychologically? Because it's not just this story, they pop up all over the place, across cultures even.
Yeah, it's like this primal fear of, I don't know, identity theft almost. Like, we're hardwired to notice tiny differences in faces, and when something's almost human, but not quite.
Right.
It's like your brain just short circuits. There's this term for it, actually, the uncanny valley. Like robots that look almost real, but something's off, gives you the creeps.
Ugh, yeah, totally.
And a doppelganger, it's that, but times 1,000. Because it's not just some thing, it's you, but twisted, you know?
And this story, it doesn't let you off easy. It's not just seeing the doppelganger, it's that whole feeling of, Sarah's identity is unraveling, the blackouts, her acting different. It's giving classic possession story, but with an extra layer of psychological horror on top.
Exactly. And those tropes, they work because we're primed for them. You see blackout, sudden change in personality, boom, we're already thinking something's taking over.
Right, it's almost instinctual at this point how we read those signs.
Totally. And it taps into that deep down fear of losing yourself, right? Like your body, it's not even yours anymore.
And it's the little things in this story that get me. Do you remember that part with the dirt under her fingernails? So specific.
Oh.
Just creepy. Makes you wonder what she was doing during those blackouts.
That's the stuff that sticks with you. Because it's not over-explained. It makes the point that something else was in control, literally leaving its mark on her.
And that ties into the ending, which I don't know about you, but I kind of love it and kind of hate it at the same time. No big reveal, no exorcism, no tidy explanation. It just stops.
That's what's so good about it. You're forced to sit with it.
Yeah.
What happened to her? What was that thing? Your brain, it keeps going even though the story's over, you know?
Right. And the possibilities are almost scarier because they're coming from inside my head.
100%. The writer doesn't have to spell it out. They just have to nudge you in the right direction. And the stuff you come up with on your own is always going to be more effective. Right?
He's the scariest stuff is always going to be the stuff we imagine ourselves, The stuff we don't have an answer for.
Totally. It's why this "she wasn't alone" thing, it's such a classic example of how digital folklore works now. It's not just telling you a story, it's like planting a seed, right? And that unease, it just keeps growing, even after you're done reading.
And probably why you end up telling it to someone else. Like, you gotta pass it on.
It's almost like it's designed to be shared.
Totally. And the more you talk about it, the more everyone's little what-ifs and theories, they get added to the mix.
Right. It's like it mutates with each retelling. And that open ending, come on, that's just asking for it.
It's practically begging to be debated. Like, what did happen to Sarah? No, really, I need to know.
See, that's the beauty of it. It leaves you with that itch, you know? And the not knowing, for some folks, that's scarier than any answer.
So, to bring it all back around, like we always do,
Yeah.
what would you say is the thing that really makes this story tick? Why does it work so well, even when we've heard a million spooky stories before?
It's firing on all cylinders. You know, it takes that basic fear, being alone in the dark, which we've all felt. Then it layers on those classic horror tropes we talked about, like the 3 a.m. thing, the doppelganger. But it does it subtly.
Yeah, it's not over the top, which somehow makes it worse.
Exactly. Because then it's your own brain filling in the gaps.
Yeah.
And that ending, man, leaving it open like that, that's just masterful. But honestly, I think the biggest thing this story's got going for it is how well it understands our deepest fears. The stuff we don't even like to admit we're scared of.
Like what?
Loss of control, the idea that something else could be in charge, even of your own body, your identity, that's primal stuff. And it doesn't matter how rational you are, that stuff hits deep.
It's true. I mean, this story, it's definitely got me looking over my shoulder a little bit. Might have to invest in a nightlight or two.
Right, just in case.
Well, on that note, I think we've officially creeped ourselves out enough for one night. Seriously, though, thanks for taking this deep dive with us. This one was a ride.
Anytime. Always up for dissecting the good, scary stuff.
And for everyone listening, remember, sometimes the scariest monsters, they're the ones we create ourselves. Sweet dreams.
Like and subscribe.